that the public was not privy to. That's just, I'm giving you my perception.
That can be your perception, but that's not the reality.
Okay.
There was no deal.
Well, that's how it appears to citizens. I think to follow up on Amy's point, as far as severity of cuts, everything is relative. Everything is, the cuts that each department in the town took was relative to the position they were coming into this budgeting process. I think what people see from the school committee side, when people say that the school is taking the brunt of it, there were no positions lost from the town side. There's 8.5 positions lost on the school side. The same point you made, Mr. Callahy, on the fact that you said it was commendable that we didn't lose any positions on the town side, and I agree with you on that. You said you're glad because those people provide services to the town. So don't those 8.5 FTEs that are being lost out of the school.
There were also new contracts, though. And that changes the equation.
I'm not disputing the fact that there was new contracts, but that's a fact of life, okay?
It was on this side of the.
But we're losing 8.5 positions out of the school. We're losing 25% of the classrooms at the 4th grade level in the batch. To me, that's severe. That is a severe impact. Yes, the school budget is going up $45,000. I agree with you. And the fact that the town stood up and took the cuts, whether it's $240,000 or $460,000, it's not clear to me after the discussion we just had. But the impact to a person sitting out here, the impact doesn't look as severe. When the department heads come to these meetings and say, I can live with that bottom line just as long as you allow me to tweak my dollars between accounts versus teachers walking out the door, the severity of those impacts are very, very different. I guess my last point is before the board votes on the budget, I would ask you to take one more look and see if you can't balance the pain a little bit more, because it doesn't appear to a regular citizen that the pain is being shared all the way through the town government. Thank you.
I just had a question on the process. You explained it pretty well earlier, but if the school committee wants more money in their budget, they go to the finance committee and say, this is what we want. Is that essentially how it works? You don't say here, let's cut $200,000 and give it to the school committee. The finance committee doesn't. So the school committee decides what they want. You decide what you want. And then the finance committee says, and Mr. Dow and whoever else says, we can or can't afford it. Is that basically how it works or no?
No, the school committee deliberates a budget that starts with the superintendent, and the superintendent goes to his administrators and the school business manager, and they build their budget, and you know, they instruct the superintendent presents that and so forth. For general government, Mr. Younger provides his department heads you know, a request to prepare their budgets, and they submit their budgets to him, and then he goes through a process, and then we get the book. This is on the town side, because I really would prefer not to delve into their process too far. On the town side, we get the book, and it shows us last year's actuals, last year's budget, the prior year's actuals, the current budget, a proposed budget, which is the department head request, and then the town administrator's recommendation, which is in virtually every case, although they might have moved things within lines, you know, the town administrator's request is less than the department head request, and then the town administrator meets and works with his department heads, the board for the first time this year, to make sure that there was communication and to discuss the benchmarking, et cetera. The board had liaisons for each department head, so individual members of the board actually, and for those of you who were here at the beginning of the meeting, individual members of the board actually presented the budget first and basically provided a recommendation to the board. This is what I think we should do with this particular budget. What was different about this process is that, back to the finance planning team, why they meet so many times, because we used to build the budget from a 60-40 split, and we'd take the revenues, and every week we'd tweak the revenues and build the budget from that. So every week we would meet to go over the new revenue sheet and see how the 60-40 split worked, and then how did that all fit into the picture. What we did this time was the school department prepared a budget, general government prepared a budget. We then went and prepared, Mr. Dow then went and prepared the revenues, and he works very closely, obviously, with Mr. Younger as well as with Mr. Nelson on the school side. And then we put the whole thing together, and we really weren't that far off. And so we said, well, we can, you know, we'll work to make this work. And then in between the first meeting and the second meeting, we learned that the state had changed the way they were doing things, and the gap, if you will, was far greater than we thought. And that was the roughly 100 and, I use round numbers, everybody knows that, $110,000. And so we thought we had a $35,000 or $70,000 hole or whatever it was, and it was actually, there was 110 added onto that. So when we met last Friday, it was a $190,000 gap. And when we met, there were no deals. I turned to Mrs. Vaca and I said, where is the school committee? What's your budget number? And she gave me the budget number. And then Mr. Dow and Mr. Younger, to their credit, went off and, you know, beat the bushes, et cetera, or beat the assessors, one or the other, and made it all work. And I can understand why the general public might think, well, they didn't meet as many times, they didn't do as many things, because we didn't have to. But we all worked, the school committee, the board of selectmen, and the finance committee, all worked from the get-go to build a budget that the community could afford to pay without an override. Because personally, I think part of that was that we all felt that that day's coming. You know, not soon enough for some of us, but that day's gonna come. Because we can't keep going like this. And back to an earlier comment, I don't think it's just the school department that's going backwards. I think everything's going backwards. And in terms of, you know, just laying off people, I mean, you know, we met with one of the departments. Every time you refinance, they gotta come down here and get the thing. Well, at this table, 2 people, 6 times. That's just 2 of us at this table. I didn't poll the other 3 that didn't pipe in that night. So that's a lot of work. And as a service to the community, it doesn't get seen, it doesn't, you know, but has a great impact on people if they're trying to lock in a rate, do a refinance, and anybody that doesn't know, rates really dropped today, so call tomorrow. But it's I thought, and I can't help, and I told Mrs. Vaca this on the phone earlier this evening, I cannot help but be impressed by the work of everyone in this process. No, it's not perfect. Did we do as much as we could? Yes, we did. We're all volunteers, and we're doing everything we can to do the best that we can for everybody in the community. And was there arm twisting and pushing and pulling? There really wasn't. And I'll be perfectly honest with you, there usually is. And that's why there's 7 or 8 meetings. Again, my hat's off to the school committee and to Mr. Younger and Mr. Dow, because they're really the people that made this whole thing work. And there's pain, absolutely there's pain. In terms of laying off, can't lay off just for layoff's sake. Is the pain the same? No, and I can understand why it's probably not felt the same. There are other reasons that perhaps that if we laid off if we laid off one clerical position, that might have a domino effect throughout the entire building. In addition to not saving a lot of money, it could have a domino effect throughout the entire building, based on the structure of things.
I guess my
and
only
the
point
bumping
is,
rights.
if the Board of Selectmen and the town administrator want more money for their budget, for whatever it is, it's up to the Board of Selectmen to make that case and to find the revenue sources for that money, for that funding, correct? If the school committee wants more money, it's up to the school committee to make that case and find sources of revenue for what they want, what they need. I mean, isn't that, I'm just trying to understand.
Well-
You don't tell them what their budget is, they don't tell you what your budget is.
That's correct.
So I'm just trying to understand how that works.
That's part of the ground rules of finance planning. We
Yes.
don't, in finance planning team, you know, I don't tell them how to negotiate a contract, and they don't tell me how to negotiate a contract. And I don't tell them how to budget, and they don't tell me how to budget. Do we work collectively and cooperatively? Yes. Do we disagree? Absolutely. Do we sometimes, you know, have it out, so to speak? Absolutely. But we work together, because together, all of us need to find that revenue. It's not us, them, it's not just the school, it's not just general government. This is, it really is, it's painful for everyone. And, you know, we worked, and they worked extremely hard to continue in this environment, in this economy, with the crunch that we're facing. We worked extremely hard on both sides to continue to provide the services within the existing constraints. Sir?
I guess just a couple points to basically to expand on what you mentioned from the local government side, and give you my opinion as a citizen, as a parent, from the school committee side. You mentioned keeping a level of service, which you look like you have achieved and done it very fiscally conservatively on the local government side. I don't believe that level of service is being mirrored on the school side. So I'm here to basically make that statement to you, ask for your assistance, for your leadership, moving forward so that that can occur. I don't like when I see 9 people being let go. You mentioned the domino effect. Well, the domino effect is 2,500 students in the school system. So it could be that instead of that one clerical worker in town hall, it could be one clerical worker or one potential teacher or someone in the administration that has a domino effect on a good portion of the school system. I attended the school committee budget meetings, and I know you say that this was done on the up and up, which I believe a majority of it was, but from my perception from the school committee side, that they backed into a number. There was a preconceived number or range that was acceptable that was backed into. So I don't believe, as it was mentioned earlier, that it was done in the true spirit of how the budget was portrayed last fall, that it would be built from a ground-up budget.
I can't respond to that.
And then I guess the last point is the fact that this board and the school committee board is not getting together has me question whether the last dollar being spent on the town government side is more important than something that is being cut on the school committee side, and vice versa. The fact that these two large bodies that have control of $26 million aren't getting together to even have coffee and donuts doesn't make any sense at all. That seems very flawed to me. And I would encourage you, at least for next year, to commit to do that.